Welcome to our meditation and wellness talk tonight. We're going to be going over the elements from the Chinese medicine perspective, and also doing our usual introduction to mindfulness and meditation, as well as experiencing a guided meditation at the end of the session. So we'll do very brief intros and then dive into the material. So welcome again. My name is Brooke Fries. I'm a licensed acupuncturist and Chinese herbalist. And I have a family practice where I'm a pediatric specialist, and then I also treat the full range of teens and adults as well.
Hi, I'm Debbie Fries. As you heard, there's a similar name there. Brooke and I started this practice together, and I am a somatic psychotherapist. And what that means is that in addition to traditional talk therapy, I'm also trained to pay attention to the body and the breath. And sort of the theory behind it is that the body holds a tremendous amount of wisdom and knowledge that over time we sort of learn to distance from and not pay attention to. And so the work that I do really allows people to access that deeper wisdom, that inner knowing, and also look at sort of what interrupted that along the way. So how we can really help to support that and live a life that's filled with aliveness and excitement and the ability to also tolerate what's uncomfortable without having to go away from it or do something to change it.
Great.
I work with couples, I work with individuals, I work with young adults and with teens.
Great.
Not little guys.
That's true.
Just about everybody else.
I just thought we can do like an intro and then like edit it all together. So
You
it
can
actually
do that.
doesn't have to be a one take. kind of thing.
No, we'll do that. We'll go back
Kind
to
of
it.
stressful.
Yeah.
All right.
Well, it doesn't allow for spontaneity
Which part?
when you have to worry about editing when you're talking.
Yeah, exactly. I agree. All right. So anyway, you're privy to our first recording session.
You're so lucky.
It's so lucky. Yes, thank you. All right. So just to give you an overview, we're going to delve into the elements, and I will explain what that means, and we'll talk about each one in particular. And then we'll go a little bit deeper than I've gone in any other talks about the elements, and talk about the relationships between them and how you can really support each one, which is exciting because I haven't gone there before with a talk. So I'm excited to share that information. And then we will move into the meditation and mindfulness aspect, and tonight's meditation will focus on really connecting to and cultivating the strengths of each element within yourself. Really nice. And feel free to chime in, ask questions. It's been very conversational at these workshops, which enhances them so much.
And we welcome your participation because it really adds a valuable dimension to these talks as well.
Yeah. Okay, so in this practice, it is called the elemental family for a reason, and the elements truly inspired the name and really the whole outlook on how we support people from a physical standpoint and also a mental, emotional standpoint. So a really large overview of what using the elements in this way looks like is that it's a psycho-emotional and behavioral model. So each of these 5 elements, which we'll talk a little bit more about later, exists in the natural world. And Chinese medicine evolved over thousands of years based on observations of the natural world, and out of that came the understanding of these 5 different elements. And because we see the human being as just a microcosm of this macro environment, these 5 elements exist within us as well. And there's a system of correspondences, and so each element corresponds to a particular organ system, and that's how it's rooted and grounded in the body. And then there's also an emotional component. There's a body, sort of a body part or section of the body, like the muscles and the ligaments and the bones that are corresponding to each of them as well. So
and
we
organs.
can go, the organs, which grounded in the body. So there's that sort of physical aspect to it. But you can also see it, if you go back to kind of the behavioral model, as 5 adaptive styles in the world. And what that means is that We each adapt to stress in completely unique ways, and this model helps you understand why you react in a particular way. And once you understand that about yourself, you can learn how to go from reacting to responding, because there's this self-awareness and compassion for why you are the particular way that you are, and really kind of knowing how to support yourself kind of therapeutically when you want to change things, and then just how to celebrate exactly who you are. So there's the self-awareness aspect, and then compassion. That was a huge piece for me, which I'll talk about a little bit later. So stress, talked about that. And then just this whole lens and model for who you are in the world. So I went over a bit of this. So there are 5. We have each of them within us, but the idea is that constitutionally there's one that is primary for each of us, and we really just come into the world wired in that way. That how is a mystery, right? Why our kids have any temperaments they have, and the same for ourselves. So there's a primary one, and then there's generally kind of a secondary one that really informs that primary one as well. And once you sort of understand this primary one, that is going to give you a lens for understanding yourself, and then this self-care piece that we'll talk a lot about. Another thing I really love about this model is that it's so positive. It really asks the question, what is right with you, as opposed to a lot of that sort of pathological thrust that medicine has, especially Western medicine, which is, all right, what's the problem? What's wrong with you? And yes, we want to address that, and that's what I address in my practice every day, wanting to fix symptoms and make people feel more comfortable and better. But overall, we want to look at what's working and how we can support that and bring what's out of balance back into balance.
Yes, it's destigmatizing. It's a destigmatizing
Absolutely.
model.
Yeah, completely. So just like she said, it's very normalizing and depathologizing, destigmatizing. And then I came across this quote. I looked it up. I don't know where it came from, but I really liked it. The fittest might survive, but the emotionally balanced thrive. So with that, and then if this is interesting to you, the whole elemental assessment thing, you can read a lot more about the elements. These 2 books have informed most of my practice, everything I'm going to tell you tonight. And so if you'd like to read more, the first one to start with perhaps is Between Heaven and Earth. And this really goes into detail about the 5 elements. And then Fire Child, Water Child, and that's by Ephraim Korngold and Harriet Beinfield, and they are my mentors, as is Stephen Cowan. And he's a pediatrician on the East Coast, and he and Ephraim met 20 years ago and have developed this amazing collaboration that they now teach to acupuncturists who want to work with children. But the model, even though it's based on children in this book, it's relevant to every single human on earth. Like, it's helpful as a parent, but it's a human model. So these 2 texts are incredible resources if you're curious and want to learn more. Okay, so we actually talked about this already. I touched on all of this, the natural world and how we're just a microcosm, and that's how these elements are relevant to our bodies and our psyches. And the way we'll go into describing each element is based on the seasons. So in addition to having a corresponding organ system, each element has a corresponding season, and we explain kind of the attributes of the element based on the power of and what goes on during a particular season in nature. So water is connected to winter and the kidney organ system. Wood is connected to spring and the liver organ system. Fire is connected to summer and the heart. Earth is sort of that harvest, late summer, Indian summer idea, which we don't really pay too much attention to anymore, but is a significant part of our cyclical, seasonal cycles. And that's the spleen organ system, and then metal is connected to autumn or fall and the lung organ system. It's also nice to keep in mind that everything in Chinese medicine is on a spectrum, but you can really see from the behavioral aspect a more extroverted side and a more introverted side. And this was helpful to me to really just kind of visualize what we're talking about. So the fire element is the most extroverted. Wood is also strongly extroverted, but not quite as dynamic as fire. And the words really imply, there's a lot to the words too. Earth is a very balanced element, and so it can be extroverted when needed, it can be introverted when needed. It's very accommodating. Metal is more towards the introverted side, and then water is the most introverted. Okay. To organize kind of our talk about this, there's two aspects of each element that are important to understand. And one is, and again, it's not pathologizing at all or stigmatizing, it's just explanatory. So one is really your gifts. What strengths did you come into this world with that you've been able to really cultivate over your lifetime?
Hi, welcome.
Hi, go on in. Get some tea if you want. So your gifts and your strengths really shine when you are in a confident, attentive state, right? You're just grounded. In that work that Debbie does, they refer to this as your core self. You're connected to that, right? Grounded core aspect of yourself. From a Western perspective, this is really a parasympathetic state. So there's the sympathetic part of our nervous system and the parasympathetic aspect. And the sympathetic is that fight or flight or freeze, that very sort of adrenalized state. And then the parasympathetic aspect is more of the rest and digest, where healing takes place, where deep rest takes place. So the gifts and strengths come from that calm, consolidated state. And then there's the other side, and we flip into these sides all the time, back and forth. And this is an exaggerated, kind of fragmented version of your gifts. So it's one and the same thing, but there's two different manifestations, really depending on sort of your state of being and the situation at hand. And this comes out when we're stressed, when we're feeling scared, when we're feeling insecure, whatever that might look like. And Stephen Cowan in the Fire Child, Water Child book calls this a call for help, because he works with a lot of children with ADHD. And so he completely has depathologized that diagnosis, doesn't even call it a diagnosis, it's just a set of symptoms that are showing that a child is stressed in a variety of situations, wherever these sort of symptoms are coming up. So he says that child is just asking for help when they're acting out in that quote-unquote ADHD type of way. And he also says there's 5 very different kinds of ADHD, which he goes through in the book very clearly. And this is more of a sympathetic, stressed state that we're in. Okay, so we're going to go through all 5. So we're going to start with water, which again is connected to the kidneys. And we're starting with water because we are still in winter, even though it does not feel like that here. Unfortunately, we had like a taste of winter and then it disappeared, sadly. But let's think about what the qualities of winter are. So in a lot of the country, it snows and sort of the busyness of nature is quieted. It's an introspective time. A lot of religions have holy days in the winter. There's a reason for that. So the idea of winter is that it's just very quiet and settled, and it's a deep time. So the grounded state of water types is when they can be sages in the world. Like water babies are the ones you look at and you say, that is an old soul. Like those eyes are just full of such wisdom at an infant's age. So the archetype is the philosopher, and they're very attracted to meaning and self-reflection. They really want to understand things. They're introspective and super imaginative. So this can take sort of the philosophical route where people are just like deeply, deeply thinking about things. And then they're super imaginative too. So writers and a lot of artists are watery. We now use this sort of lens for everything. So if someone's watery or they're metally or anyway. So the watery types.
True.
They're just very contemplative. And their power is when they're really in something, they're fully immersed in it. And you can't even really reach them because they live in their mind. Then when water types get a little bit stressed, and something that really stresses water types is time, because time is a very metal, precise construct. And for water types, time is infinite. Stephen likes to say, what? I can sit and think forever. And water types often get into sort of a daydreamy place where it seems hard to reach them. And you can think about nature in this way too. So you think about a frozen lake in winter. It looks like nothing's happening, but below the surface,
bubbling.
Tons of things are going on, and life is very much happening. And so similarly, in a water type of person, it might look like, or it might even be kind of hard to connect with them at some points, but it's really just because there's so much going on in their own imaginative, philosophical mind. So on the exaggerated, sort of fragmented side, when they feel stressed, they're comfortable with isolation and being by themselves because that's how they do their best work and thinking and creating. But when they're stressed out, they might isolate even further and completely withdraw and get even harder to reach. They can get a little bit apathetic or / depressed. There's a stubbornness about them. They kind of dig in their heels because that's what feels safe. And then on the physical side, some of the attributes are just general fatigue, back pain, where the kidneys are located, low back pain specifically, and then just an overall kind of hypochondria, like an Eeyore type of affect. So that's water. Any questions? Did I miss anything on water? Okay. Good. Okay, so from winter we move into spring. And the difference between winter and spring, kind of the power of those two seasons, is so vast. Like nature shifts so quickly into this like courageous bursting with energy and new life place. And so wood holds the power of spring, and wood is connected into the body via the liver organ network. And the reason we use the word network and not just organ is because we see each organ as having an emotional component, and it's not just the physical functioning of that organ. There's a huge range of other functions that it has in the body. So that's how Eastern medicine differs a bit from Western medicine.
And also because it's not an isolated structure or functional unit.
Right.
It's part of this bigger network. And each organ has a paired organ. So like the liver isn't the only wood organ. The gallbladder is wood as well.
Yeah, totally, because they balance each other. And yeah. And Hannah, we didn't introduce you.
Yeah, I didn't
Hannah's
realize that.
going to be an acupuncturist in about 2 seconds. She graduates in May. Yeah. And she also is studying the type of somatic psychotherapy that Debbie practices. So she's going to come into the practice with both worlds. Yeah, it's so cool.
All of y'all are doing it.
It's pretty exciting, actually.
Yeah. She just has a lot of tests coming up, but then it's going to be done. Okay, so in spring, think about like the power that's required for a teeny tiny seed to burst through the soil and become a beautiful plant. Like that is the energy of the wood type. So the archetype is the pioneer, like somebody who is forging new experiences and new territory, very fearless. They are true heroes. So they are incredibly, they're very persistent. I said heroic. They're attracted to movement, very kinesthetic. They learn kinesthetically, and they're often excellent athletes. And these are all of the grounded qualities when wood is really, in its prime and in the flow.
Yeah, I was just going to say that. I was going to say that using those words being in the flow.
Yeah.
They're in their zone.
Right, exactly. Nothing will stop them. And that's a positive thing. They accomplish amazing things, wood types. They're very goal-driven. They can be very competitive. They just love exploring, and they're just always pushing. Like, think of just plants and, something gets in their way, and they will adapt right around that and find a new way to move towards the sun, which is that ultimate goal. Super decisive. Like, if you need advice and you have a wood friend, ask them because they will tell you. No problem. And so lawyers are often wood types. I have multiple lawyers in this practice, and not all of them, but most of them are wood types. Like, they're just drawn to that kind of intense and argumentative, almost, like, quality of the work that they have to do. So that's on the grounded and powerful side. Then when they get stressed, and they're often stressed by constraint, because wood just wants to move, whether it be, like physically expressing themselves or moving towards whatever that goal is in sight. And so in an exaggerated state, they can get easily frustrated. And in Chinese medicine, the liver is in charge of free flow in the body, whether that be of blood and other fluids or on an emotional plane. So that sort of just irritability that comes up, we need to move the liver in order to help our bodies get through that. So they're easily frustrated. They can move to shouting, like that. They're not scared of confrontation. A little bit hostile or angry. Anger is the emotion of the liver. And in kids, these are kids who cannot sit still. So if you think of like a typical ADHD kid who just won't sit still in the classroom and things like that, like just that typical idea, that is a wood type, very typically. And then on the physical side, you see tension, headaches, muscle twitching, like just think of all the energy of that it needs to get out. And so you see that in twitches, and then just general restlessness. Okay. So then from spring we move into summer, and the fire element is connected to the season of summer and is connected to the heart organ network. And in summer, the sort of tending of the garden in spring is done, and you can sort of let that go and have fun and appreciate all of the blooming that is happening around you, the beautiful flowers that are coming out. And so similarly, fire types are very charismatic. They are wizards and leaders. And they're leaders because you want to follow them, because they're confident, but in like a shiny way. They walk in the room and it's a fire type because you're just drawn to them. Like we're drawn to beauty in the world and aesthetically pleasing things. So fire types are those people. They light things up. They're compassionate and funny, and they are attracted to sensation. They can be dramatic. They're very intuitive. They're just super in tune on like an emotional level. And when they're in something, they're highly engaged with it. Like they're fully there. So actors, a lot of them, not all of them, but a lot of them are fiery types. They enjoy being in front of people and performing and that whole aspect. And then a lot of politicians too. They kind of need that quality for people to want to jump on board and support them and follow them. So that's their grounded state. Like I think, I have a lot of fires in my life, and really they are the ones who, they just lighten anything. Like I'm metal, we're almost there, and it's an intense type. and I've really relied on fires to like just lighten that a little bit. Like, it's okay, we can be optimistic. Why not? No harm in that. So then in the exaggerated state, fires, because they're so they want novelty and sensation, and they're always looking for kind of the next fix in a positive way, that can turn into a negative. So they're distracted by boredom. They don't want to be bored. That's really unpleasant for them. And they can there's two aspects to their exaggerated state. One is the class clown. So in order to sort of diffuse stress, they get really silly and funny. And then on the other side, because they're so sensitive to things, they just get overloaded with sensation and have major meltdowns because they need to do something with it. Panicky, impulsive, these are all aspects that come out in a more exaggerated state. And then on the physical side, they run hot, and so they burn through their food really fast and go into sort of a hypoglycemic state easily, sensory issues, and then reflux as well. Just again, like this heat, their bodies generate a lot of heat really easily. In Chinese medicine, we can go off onto a whole another talk about what that means. But anything else? Okay, next we go into the earth element, and this is that late summer / harvest season, which we just don't really pay much attention to anymore. And this element is grounded in the body via the spleen, one of the major organs of digestion in Chinese medicine. So what used to happen a long time ago is that, in summer all of the harvest would be blooming and growing, and then during this late summer time, everyone in the community would come together and gather it, right? And this was a time of group work, community, like we all needed to chip in and be part of this. And so the earth element is the true caregiver, the peacemaker. They're amazing mediators. They're friends with everybody. They're very social. Fire is very social, and earth is very social, but in different ways. So fire is social in that, like, let's go party kind of way, and they gain energy off of being around people and in that way. And then earth is social in this, like, I want to be friends with everybody and take care of everyone kind of way. So they are very, very accommodating, where wood is very adaptable. Earth is very accommodating. So wood is adaptable, meaning they're going to adapt in order to get what they want, and earth is accommodating, so they are going to do what is necessary for someone else.
Keep the peace.
Keep the peace, yeah, whatever that means. They learn by context, meaning they need the full story to really understand what is going on. They're super diplomatic, and when they're in their flow, they're super present. They're so right there with you. So a lot of people in the healing industries or healing fields are earth types. I put chefs just because of wanting to work with food and nourish others, but not chefs like running a high-powered restaurant kind of thing. That would be more wood, like what that takes. But chefs who just want to share like the joy of food and and nourish people. So, yeah. Okay, so that's the grounded state when earth is really in its flow. And then the exaggerated state, because they want to please everyone and because they want to keep the peace, earth types can worry a lot about everything. They worry about what's going on with themselves and their families, and then they worry about what's going on with everybody else. And that's a lot of worry. So there's anxiety that comes with that. There's indecision that comes with that. Like just overthinking things and perseverating on things can be kind of disorganized, just this obsessive aspect. And then because they're everybody's friend and they know everybody's secrets, that can turn into a little bit of like a meddlesome gossipiness because they know everything. And then physically, because the spleen organ network is one of the main digestive organs, you see stomach aches, especially in kids, like chronic stomach aches and stomach hurts, and they're probably just stressing and worrying about something, and it comes out through stomach aches. Easy bruising, we see that in Chinese medicine is related to the spleen because the spleen is in charge of holding the blood within the vessels. So if you're bruising easily, we see that as a deficiency in the spleen, which comes back to the earth element. And then unruly appetites, so earth types can struggle with weight issues sometimes just because they turn to food as comfort for a lot of people, and they can struggle with that a lot. Okay, all right, last but not least. So metal is our fifth one that we're talking about, and that one is connected to the season of autumn, and it's physically connected to the lung organ network. And metal types, well, let's talk about fall. I think that will help. So in fall, what's happening in nature? The leaves are starting to leave the trees, hopefully, and you start seeing the patterns in nature. So metal types are very precise, and they're attracted to logic and detail. Just like in nature, you're starting to see the logic of nature because things are becoming more bare and clear. So they're very ethical, and they have very high expectations of things. They're really attracted to like the idea of perfection. Like, how can I attain perfection in an assortment of places in my life? They're very rational and logical, and they can be very discriminating. So whereas a wood type will tell you exactly what side of the argument they're on and why you should, follow their thinking, a metal type can really see both sides because they are sort of this fair judge type. They're like, things should be fair in the world, and things should be right and wrong and black and white. So when they're in their flow, there's the power of precision. So architects, I just picked that because that takes a lot of precision to be, engineering in that way. Ballerinas, I was a ballerina. Once I learned this system, like, of course I was. It was like the most perfect thing for me to be because you're just like working on technique and technique and technique. Like that just made so much sense. However, when a metal type gets stressed out or feels scared, that precision can turn into rigidity and perfectionism and stuck. Like you just can't move forward because it's not right. Whatever it is, it's not right. So this just hyper focus on things. Like for a kid, a metal type child who's learning to write, they will, do one letter and then erase it a million times if it's not exactly what they're going for, or just get stuck in these patterns of rigidity, compulsion, disappointment. Because you have such high expectations of things, you can easily get disappointed when you're in a fragmented state. And sadness is the emotion of the lung, so that's connected as well. And then physically, lung types, the lung organ system is connected to the large intestine in Chinese medicine, and so that's where the constipation comes in. If things are getting stuck up in the lungs, things are not flowing below either. And then the lung is connected to the skin, and so you see things like eczema, asthma, and then ticks. Different ticks from a wood type. A wood type tick is not being able to contain all this energy, and a metal tick is more of like a compulsive thing. Anyway, that's the difference, if that's clear at all. Any questions about all these? There's so much information I'm throwing at you.
Are you relating to any
Yeah,
of
is it making
them?
sense? Is it, yeah, okay.
See yourself,
You'll
see
see
your
your kids.
kids.
Yeah.
But I'm seeing a lot of different pieces.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Okay.
Totally. So, like I said at the beginning, we have all of these within us, and we use them at different times. When you need to be like a defensive driver and deal with someone on the road, you are being a wood type. Like you are calling on your wood energy to be decisive and in charge and take care of that. When you're cooking dinner for your family and you want it to be a good, nutritious meal, that's your earth type. So all of these things do come up. Yeah, in all of them. I was thinking if we should go into any stories about anyone. I'd like to do a talk where I have one of each person, and then, because I think that would be so, clear to like just.
have one of each person.
I think you might have one of each person.
That's true.
What did you guys do?
Do you know what you are?
I'm Earth for sure.
I don't know.
Yeah, and it's hard. It takes a while.
Yeah, I mean, how do I?
Oh, you
judge
did
my
that for your
number?
kids?
What?
Oh, did you add them up?
For kids or for
No,
you?
I did not. Yeah.
Yeah, if you add them up, that will help a bit because it'll give you.
My numbers are high.
So you might be Earth because Earth is so accommodating that they have quite a bit of everything. If the numbers are all pretty close together, that could be Earth. I'm definitely metal.
Just like a
You're also Earth. You're watery Earth.
Water.
88 Earth. 82. Is that high?
Wait, I want to know. You're metal. And what are you?
Mhm.
How
Earth.
many are there in each? There's
What was
20.
she? Water. What are you?
No, I'm Earth.
I think I'm
But
Earth,
with a lot of
but I
water.
also had a lot of wood qualities.
You could get 100. Is the highest you can
Okay,
get.
thank you.
So I got 88 in Earth.
Yeah. Yeah, you're.
73 in water.
So there's no
Yeah.
woods.
67.
Well, I think I'm a little wood. Well, I think that's my primary. I mean, my secondary.
Yeah.
The wood.
Mm-hmm.
And no fires.
I know the fires are home.
You're a scout. Fires are home. Yeah, Chloe.
Fires are home right now. Yeah, we do have a lot, but they're just not here right now. Anyway, that will be fun someday. Okay, so I wanted to talk a little bit about, and this kind of goes into what you're talking about too, Jenny, in that nothing exists in a vacuum in Chinese medicine. So if you're dealing with an emotional thing, a physical thing, we're treating the whole system. And similarly with the elements, they are all support one another, they control one another, they can overact on, there's a whole like complicated interplay, complicated but beautiful interplay between them, which is nice to know. Like for example, I'm a metal type, but my physical symptoms that come out are more on the wood side, and the reason for that is that metal can control wood. And so I think when my metal is out of balance, it just like shoots that energy across to the wood element, and my physical symptoms come out in that way. So it's more complicated, or it's more intricate than just like face
This
value.
is who you are.
Yeah, which might be overwhelming, but also is helpful to understand because it's not, there's fluidity within it.
Is it like a rock, paper, scissors game? Like if you have a little metal, that's gonna take over in times, like how you said that
Right.
your metal takes over.
Yeah, like moves
Well,
into
there's
this.
two
And
different cycles too.
That's
Did
true.
you already talk about that?
Mm-mm.
Oh, is it the shung and the ka?
Uh-huh.
So the shung is the one on the outside, right? The creation.
Yeah, the nourishing. Yeah.
Where like fire is the mother of earth. If you think about like, you know, you burn wood to get fire. So wood is the mother of fire, which then creates ash, creates earth, right? Earth is the mother of metal, metal is the mother of water, and just so on and so
Mhm.
forth. So, you know, if your fire is deficient, if the mother of earth is deficient, it won't be able to feed its child. So then the earth might be deficient. Or if earth is excess, it might take from its mother, right? The child is demanding too much of its mother. And then the other cycle is the arrows in the middle, and that's like a grandmother-grandchild relationship. And usually the grandparent overacts on the grandchild. You know, if the grandchild is taking too much from its mother, then grandma comes in and says, no.
To protect the mother.
Right? So
Protect her
that's-
child.
That's why Brooke's metal might
Overact.
overact on her wood. The one that we see the most in clinic is, for me anyways, is wood
Mhm.
overacting on earth.
Yeah,
Because
this
the wood
arrow.
is so prone to excess, and it's associated with the liver, which is usually an excess in the liver is like from stress, and you get irritable, and we live in such a stress-filled world right now, and then it usually causes symptoms, earth-like symptoms, so digestive issues
Yeah,
or.
which one
Yeah.
is the stomach problem?
It's earth.
Mhm.
Then that's probably me.
Yeah, we trace a lot of pathology back to the wood element and the liver organ system. So it can overact on earth and cause digestive upset. It can overact, it can go backwards and on metal and cause like deep sinus issues. So that's how we use this kind of clinically too.
May I ask a question?
Yeah.
I know from listening to you speak before, one of your main things of teaching us this is to just, for us to understand what we are and so that we can be accepting of that. But is there also a sense of trying to find balance between all the elements? Like if I'm like, I have zero fire, or I have zero metal,
Mhm.
because I really do.
No, but
Should
you have
I-
no metal.
Pardon?
You have no metal.
Yeah, I don't think so. Like, should I be working on trying to become like that, so it's like more symbiotic between them, or should I just be like, yay, Earth?
Right.
That's who
So
I am.
I'll answer that from my perspective. I would say yay, Earth.
Mhm.
Because part of it is really being able to identify and celebrate
Mhm.
what you bring to the world. Those qualities are part of who you are. And I think by trying to deny them a little bit or sort of pigeonhole them or constrain them to add a little bit of metal because somewhere along the way you heard that you should be a little bit more metal, right? Very possibly in your upbringing, because we know that in our family systems, depending on how who we are raised by and who we are, what elements we are, and how they're received by our families can either help blossom and strengthen or, also go into a more constricted, narrow path. So, yay, Earth. You're Earth. That's who you are,
I think there's a
right?
reason from like a more macro standpoint, that we all have different elements that dominate us, right? If you look at nature, like it needs.
Yes,
all of them.
that's right. That's the balance then.
Mhm. The balance is that we're all different.
Yeah.
When we work together.
Yeah. Yeah, I would say like if there was a reason that you needed to cultivate that in your life, whether it be like career wise, yeah, exactly, or with the kids you work with, or who knows, like maybe some kid needs that like authority figure. I don't know, like anyway, we can talk about it.
But that's a good point, because that's where we can rely on others to support that if we need it. That's why, we're not all raised in this sort of vacuum, and it does take a village. We do need community. We do need one another to turn to when that's really not our strength, and we need a little bit more of that.
So recognizing it in other people.
Yeah.
Yeah. That book's The Strength Finder. Yeah, I read
No.
Mm-mm.
You take a test at the end. It tells you your 5 strengths,
Mhm.
whatever, and then who you work well with,
Hmm.
so that you can build a business or a company based on.
It's kind of like the tribe, right?
I love.
Yeah.
Nice.
Who's your tribe? Find your tribe and go with them, and that's how you create a really powerful
All right, so just to review all of that information we went through, we have kind of these, I call them states of grace, when we're confident and in our flow, and then that more stressed out version. So for wood, they're very courageous and they have this adaptable flexibility, but when constrained, that can turn into a frustration or hostility. For fire types, they have this high engagement with the world, this sensory, amazingly beautiful connection to it. But that high engagement, because they're always looking for that next fix, can turn into an addictive personality, and no tolerance for just kind of being. Earth types are so present and attend to everyone's needs, but that can turn into a place of excessive worry and indecision and perseveration. Metal types are very precise and always looking for that precision, but that can turn into compulsion and rigidity. And then water are so immersed in their thoughts and their interior worlds, and that can turn into sort of a place of withdrawal and isolation from the social kind of network. Okay, so this is what I was talking about in going one step further than I've gone in any other talks about the elements, and you guys can tell me how that goes, if it's information overload or if it makes sense. I think it'll be nice because there's very specific things in here about supporting each one. That will be nice. So this idea also comes from the Fire Child, Water Child book and Stephen Cowan's work, and it's that we each need to be able to support ourselves on our legs in order to be able to use our arms and our heart sort of mind. In Chinese medicine, we have this one entity called the Shen. It's the heart mind in the world. So to be able to use our gifts, we need to be able to be stably grounded. And that connects to IBP work as well, if you want to just sort
So
of
we
mention
talk
that.
about in the kind of work that I do that you really need to have your feet on the ground. You really need to be able to support yourself from an adult incorporated state when the fragmentation part, we call it the injured child. When that injured child is in a fragmented state, what do we need to do as the adult part of who we are to really support them? And so when we do breath work, we find your feet, feel your feet, and then as we do some breathing and do some emotional pieces of work, it's really about allowing people to get present and grounded to support themselves in whatever state they're in. So it can be an expansive, fully alive, excited state, as well as, having permission to feel all the weight and the sadness that may come in, because that's life, right? There's slings and arrows. So we do both, but the whole point is to really be grounded to support yourself.
Okay, so within this particular model, each element is in a triad. So there's the head and then the two legs that support it. So for fire types, the two legs are water and metal. And the reason we're going to talk about this is to talk about a few different strategies to support each of those aspects. So if you're a fire type who is having some challenges in the world, you might want to look at strengthening your fire element by supporting first the water and the metal pieces. And by doing that, you will be more grounded in yourself and more kind of secure, so that your fire, your gifts of fire, can really thrive. So you're not floundering. And this goes for all 5 of the triads. So things that support water. Silence. Just taking some time by yourself. Whether that be meditating or yoga or whatever it is, something quiet for yourself. Journaling, introspective time,
Going
thoughtful
for a
time.
walk in nature.
Going for a walk, exactly. Epsom salt baths. So the flavor of the kidney is salt. And so there's so many benefits to Epsom salt baths, but by just kind of soaking in water and then having that mineral-y aspect to it too enhances the strengthening of the kidney network. And it also is really good for leaching kind of unnecessary toxins from your body. So lots of benefits to that. And then deep breathing, deep into the belly, which we can do a little of before we do our meditation. And then things that support metal. Music and rhythm, so things that have patterns to them, just even listening to it and trying to pay attention to rhythm. If you don't play an instrument, if you do play an instrument, then play away. Mapping. So this idea is for people who need a little more, know what to expect, what's coming next. So there's an idea in the Fire Child, Water Child book again, where you can map out a child's day, and grown-ups can do this too. Like, you map out everything that happens from waking up to going to sleep, so that they know what comes next and what to expect, and there's no surprises. And that's really comforting for a metal type. And that's actually really comforting for a fire type as well, because again, we're strengthening the metal to strengthen the fire. Aromatherapy, because the metal type is connected to the lung, and so there's a million different essential oils out there that support different aspects of people. Just again, back to that idea of structure, having some structure for your day. So I'm a metal type, and it's almost sometimes, I'm an earthy metal, it's a little challenging to create structure, but once I have some structure, that is so calming and so helpful to just be productive and get things done. And then for a lot of metal types, and especially as children, there needs to be logic to the universe. And a lot of religious traditions and spiritual traditions give you that logic. They have reasons for things. So for a lot of kids who are struggling with that, that can be really helpful. Even if the family isn't necessarily religious, you can still learn about it and research it and look for answers, because that's also comforting. Okay. Next we go to wood. So the head and arms of wood, and the legs are earth and metal. So again, we just went through the metal things, same here. And then things that are supportive for earth types. Eating together, eating attentively, eating as connection, eating as communication. By eating as a family together, you can tell stories about your day. You can give context to things. You can give just space for digesting in a physical way, and then also in a mental, emotional way, like digesting what happened to you and what you're struggling with, and just connecting with the people who are closest to you. Protein is very important for wood types, because they are also, although they're not fiery, they burn through things really fast. Their metabolisms run really high. They're doing a lot and using their body a lot. So a lot of protein, especially in the morning, to like set yourself up for the day, and eating sugar with proteins to help regulate the digestion of it, things like that. And then singing and harmony, and working on like supporting those earthy intentions of mediating and being harmonious with others. So those are things that can support the earth element. And for wood, we want to work on metal and earth, so that a wood type can be fully present and thriving in the world. Okay, so this is the water type, and the two legs are fire and earth. Earth we just talked about. Things that support fiery types, so cultivating social skills. They're very social beings, and so that might take a little bit of work sometimes. They're just emotionally fiery, so being sensitive to other people's emotions. Like, they're very aware of their own emotions, but sometimes you might need to work on recognizing other people's emotions and making space for other people's emotions, and not just kind of your own drama. So acting games are really good, because they need to embody and play different roles. So things like charades are really good to cultivate your fire. And I know for myself, like as a metal type, that is not my favorite thing to do, play games like charades, but it's probably really good for me.
Like you're stoned.
I know I did.
No.
Really not my favorite, but I do it anyway, sometimes. Okay, cranial sacral, and in Chinese medicine, that work is important because it connects the fire and the water, and there's a whole other aspect to things of these poles between them, and the fire and the water is like this dyad that like rules our heart and mind and root of the kidney. So that's really good for that. And then reading emotions, so that's a game that you can play with kids if they need help, like just recognizing what emotions look like, and you can do it in in front of a mirror, or just with each other. Like, let's be happy. What does that look like? Or what is, whatever. So reading emotions, to just work on that emotional intelligence. That's what. Okay, so for a metal type, the two legs are wood and fire, and we just talked about wood. And then things that support, we just talked about fire, so things that support the wood element and the wood type is physical activity, like get that energy out of the body, allow it to move through. Stretching is really important. You don't have to go run a marathon. You can just do some stretching, and that supports the liver system and soothes the liver system. Time in nature, like the wood type is very nature oriented. So we were just in nature this weekend. It was very soothing. Travel, sort of expand awareness. Like the wood type is, when they're in their flow, always seeking on the horizon, like how far can I go? And so by traveling, you're expanding awareness within that wood element. And then self-reflection, so kind of that balance between that seeking, constantly seeking, and then building a little bit more of the interior world, like a water type is really fluent in. So to support the metal, you work on the wood and the fire. And then lastly, earth, and we've talked about both of these. So for the earth type, you want to start with wood and water. And these are the same, and I can email you these slides if you're curious and want them. So lastly, and then we'll do a little meditation, the lessons of the elements. So acceptance and appreciation for who you are, what makes you unique and different in the world, compassion for yourself when you're struggling, insight into the path you must follow to fulfill your inherent nature and impulses in this life. And then we talked about this detailed set of strategies. So yeah. All right, before we move into meditation, any questions or comments?
Question.
Yeah.
How does it change as you age? Like, can your dominant element change, or is that?
The idea is that it doesn't. So where they, Stephen and Ephraim, who I spoke about at the beginning, who sort of developed this particular model, they studied, I forget how many infants, because Stephen's a developmental pediatrician, so they followed, I forget how many kids, but from infancy until I think preteen or teenage years, and they identified the dominant element around 6 months of age, and it was consistent through that whole time. So we're going to shift gears a little bit just to talk about meditation and mindfulness, and then we'll bring the elements back in when Debbie does the guided meditation shortly. Yeah, whatever you want.
Do you want a blanket under you? Okay, it's just such an uncomfortable place to sit.
Great, thank you. Sorry, chairs in the air.
Okay.
It's all good. Do you want to talk a little about meditation, or do you want me to just go through this?
Sure, go through it, and then I can kind of add to it. I mean,
Yeah.
the whole idea of it
Yeah.
is.
So some of you have heard this before. We're going to go through it again. So what is meditation and mindfulness but the practice of paying attention and focusing your awareness, being fully conscious in the here and now? And meditation, by the way, is very nourishing, which I think we said, for the kidneys, because it's you're looking to cultivate that very quiet, still place. It's not silent in your mind, because that's impossible, but it's still a quality of just being super calm.
And contemplative, which is really important.
Yeah. So something that we've developed to encourage people to meditate, because sometimes at the beginning it can seem overwhelming, and everybody has specific ideas about it, what it should look like. So to kind of dispel that and say, there's really 5 things that you can do to help yourself get started with meditating, or just continue meditating if you're already doing it. So 1 is being comfortable when you do it, whatever that means, lying down, sitting, standing and walking. There are many ways to do it, but you want to be comfortable, or you're not going to come back to do it again and again.
Yeah, the whole reason of finding comfort is that you will come back to the practice, because it is a practice. It's like anything else. You're training a muscle, right? As if you were to go to the gym to work out, you're building muscle, you're training it. You don't just go one time and then go, okay, I'm good, I got my buff arms. You keep going back. It's the same, you're right, but it's the same type of thing. And so it's really being able to invite that little bit of time into your life and finding a way to do it that really feels comfortable. So if somebody says, oh, you only can do, meditation sitting up, it's not true. You got to find what really works for you. Now, if you lie down and meditate, and every single time you lie down and meditate, you fall asleep, you're tired. Your body probably just needs some sleep, right? So maybe you sit up next time, if that's the case, and get more sleep.
Depending. The next thing that's necessary is just making a little time for it, and it can be as short as 5 minutes a day, but committing to finding 5 minutes a day. and then eventually it will become longer. But you need the time to do it. 3, trusting the process. So knowing, like you just said, that it's a practice and it will evolve and change just as you practice anything else, and it's a skill. An absence of self-judgment, so not judging whatever the experience is like every time, so not beating yourself up because you weren't able to get to that calm Buddha state. Just accepting what is, that's part of that experience. And then I personally find a guide very helpful, so I always use an app of some sort, or somebody to guide me through and into a meditation. So, anything you want to say about that?
What I want to say something about the finding 5 minutes. We have a lot going on in our lives besides maybe procrastinating or not finding the time to do it. We're busy, especially kids and careers and spouses and all the other things that we need to make time for, that often this is one of the things that we just will let go and no, we'll do it tomorrow. And so what I want to offer is this idea that while you're on a walk, don't take a cell phone. Just be out in nature. Take some breaths. Slow down. It's really this idea of being able to slow down, and it could be making a cup of coffee or tea in the morning, but doing it with mindfulness and presence, so that you're really getting back and slowing down and getting back in your body. And what we know is that a lot of research now is coming out that meditation and mindfulness literally changes the neurobiology of the brain. It's fascinating. So all the stuff that many years ago was sort of woo-woo and, out there, there's evidence-based research now to support that we can change our body's chemistry, we can change our brain. The last 10 years they found out that, adolescence doesn't end at 18 years old. It's like it stops till you're 26. Because the brain is continually shifting and changing developmentally. So, and our brains keep changing, which is beautiful and wonderful. But we have to do things to help it. And this idea of to support it, and mindfulness and meditation is really a surefire way to do it. So,
Agreed.
mm-hmm.
Oh, this was still in there.
I love
'Cause we
it.
like it.
Mm-hmm.
You want to talk about it?
Sure.
a second?
So, what do you guys think from that, right? My life has been filled with terrible misfortunes, most of which have never happened. So we're in our heads. And the interesting thing about that is that we are hardwired for negativity, which means that we're kind of always scanning for the predator. And back in the day when there was a saber-toothed tiger that we were going to meet, out in the middle of wherever we were, we had to figure out what we were going to do in order to deal with that threat. Were we going to just, our sympathetic nervous system, the fight, flight, or freeze? Which one are we going to choose? And so we're sort of wired to look for negativity and those events. And we're scanning for danger. The problem with that is that everything has become a predator. There's no saber-toothed tiger in the room, but our bodies want to respond to it as if it were. And so we breathe. We take a breath and we say, okay, what's going on, right? Am I just sort of imagining it or thinking the worst and, because for whatever variety of reasons and things that maybe actually happened to us in our childhood, or what's really going on right now on a scale of 0 to 10, 0 being nothing and 10 being life or death, where are we on this continuum? So it gives you sort of this other lens through which to view things, and it also normalizes. I love it because it normalizes how we're wired. There's nothing wrong with us. It was a protective measure that we needed.
Okay. So this is just a little bit about what physically is going on when we practice mindfulness and meditation. So you hit.
That's great. I'm glad you had that slide. I didn't know you had it.
Yeah.
What is the difference between mindfulness and meditation?
Yeah.
Is that what you're going to explain?
No, yeah.
Oh, okay.
Well, I was going to say, go for it if you want. And we have it up there too.
So mindfulness is really the way into meditation. It's called mindfulness because you are becoming more mindful in this meditative state.
Yeah. It's an intention to be present and aware of what is going on. So when she says you can mindfully and meditatively make a cup of tea, like you aren't thinking about what you have to go do next while you're making that tea. You are fully engaged in that moment. Yeah, your mind is soft and open as opposed to like, all these things I have to think about and do and take care of, and free from distraction or judgment. And then meditating is this exercise to promote mindfulness, providing optimum conditions for training the mind to be calmer. It's supposed to be clearer and kinder, maybe cleaner.
Does it say cleaner?
Yeah. Cleaner, clearer, similar. Okay, so some of the things physically that are going on is you can support attention and focus, obviously reduce stress, create these new neural pathways to kind of get out of old patterns that we want to move beyond. Treat heart disease, improve sleep, reduce pain, lower blood pressure, all of these positive benefits to doing this.
And on that same note, what they're finding is that teaching little kids mindfulness techniques actually allows them to self-regulate, allows them to deal with stress in a much more productive, healthy way. It also improves test scores, it improves concentration, and they're beginning to do a lot of experimenting in schools now across the country where they're teaching mindfulness techniques to kids. So
I'm seeing that in
big
all the
proponent
schools.
of that.
A lot of the schools I tour
Yeah.
are doing mindfulness.
Did you see The Connection
Mm-mm.
movie?
Mm-mm.
Oh, it's all about what you're saying, the research.
nice.
and
It's
awesome.
called Connection?
Called The Connection.
The Connection. Hmm.
Yes, she is an Australian filmmaker, journalist, and she did, anyways,
Okay.
a whole documentary on it and all the science behind
Yes,
how
great.
it's changing and how it's becoming more mainstream. They're using it in the Navy and Army and all this stuff too.
Yes, absolutely. And there's a app that we're going to introduce you to called Tactical Breather, which was used in the armed forces to help people who were in very high stress, dangerous situations to be able to come from their prefrontal cortex rather than that immediate fight or flight, the amygdala, in order to make a decision in a split second about how to respond to whatever the threat was. And they taught them this 16-second bit of breathing, which we can do later if we want. But and there's a little app that we can show you too that you can do it.
Okay, so the last slide before we meditate is just kind of connecting mindfulness and the elements and what we've talked about already. So the idea that being mindful will be supportive of your innate qualities and your kind of elemental nature. So you're really focusing on just your strengths and what you have to really bring to shine in the world. And back to that idea of helping you respond from that sort of core place versus react from that exaggerated, fragmented place to people and situations in your life. And once you understand where you're coming from and which element informs your view of the world, then you're able to support yourself in this appropriate way. I just love that picture. So
Great
yeah, we can
picture.
do a little bit of a few of those breathing things, and then you can go into the.
Okay,
thing,
so
or
why don't we
can
do
just
that 16-second one just
Okay.
because that's
We'll
always a
meditate.
nice one, and then we'll go into meditation. And what I want to say before we meditate also is that your mind is going to
All right.
wander. It's a given, and that's part of the meditation. Meditation isn't about sitting there without any thoughts. It's impossible. We have how many thoughts a minute, was it?
It was like 60,000 a
Right,
day.
a day. 60,000 thoughts.
60,000 a minute.
A
I
day.
know, like that is real fast.
I'm like, I am totally chilled out. I thought I was all up in my head.
That fire child, right? See, isn't that good? Don't you feel better? Already you feel better. Just don't Google it and check it out. So allow yourself to just have permission as those thoughts come in. And I'm going to sort of talk you through it when we do the meditation, but I always want to set it up because people will always say, oh, I can't meditate. I can't. I'm like,
Yeah, my mind would never be empty.
yeah, my mind can never get still. I just can't meditate. It's not something I can do. I'm not wired for it. Like, you're right. We're all not wired for it. So the thoughts will come in And you just let them pass. And they go. They come in and they go and they come in. And it's the moments between the thoughts that's the meditation. And they tend to get longer as we do it more.
I like the idea of being a witness to your thoughts.
Mhm.
So you're really just kind of noticing and watching and then letting go, like you said, as opposed to engaging with each thought.
Yeah, becoming, that's part of it. It's being curious, being open, gentle, compassionate in this witness state. Okay, so we'll do the 16 seconds.
Sure.
Okay, so what we're gonna do is I'm gonna ask you to breathe in and I'll count you through it. We're gonna breathe in to the count of 4, hold it to the count of 4, breathe out to the count of 4, and then hold breath out to the count of 4. So you just notice kind of how you're feeling, any holding in your body or anything like that. Okay, and you can keep your eyes open for this. So breathe in, 2, 3, 4, hold, 2, 3, 4, exhale, 2, 3, 4, hold, 2, 3, 4, breathe in, 2, 3, 4, hold, 2, 3, 4, exhale, 2, 3, 4, hold, 2, 3, 4. So I lied, we did 32 seconds. So how was that? Anybody notice anything? Any difference?
I will say the last time I saw you, we did the 16-second breath. I've used it so often.
I'm so glad to hear that. Yeah.
If only just to distract me from whatever is happening that I'm not enjoying. Or just
Perfect.
taking a second.
Yeah, and look, it takes so little, right? And we always think this has got to be such a big deal. And, doing 16 seconds, a little bit of breathing can just really help regulate the autonomic nervous system so that we're balancing the sympathetic and the parasympathetic.
You can play with the time too.
Totally.
Like you can spend more time on the hold or more time on the exhale, and you don't have to go four.
For any, does it change anything, or is it just?
I think it probably does, but there's one that David
We
G,
do.
or was it Andrew Weil,
Well, in IBP we do a little bit different where we count,
yeah,
where
we can
the
do that where you do
counting.
4 and do 4, 4, 4, 4, and then increase that to 6, 6, 6, 6, and then 8, 8, 8, 8. Or there was one I did recently where it was I think it was inhale for 4, hold for 7 or something, exhale for 8, but then he didn't have us hold at the end, so there's all different. I guess you could see how
Flexible.
it makes you feel.
Styles too, there's a meditation class that I've gone to
Right.
and she does it all mouth breathing.
Mhm.
It's all in through the stomach and then up and then out, but she says it makes a more intense meditation or something because it's all out of the mouth. And it seems to be different for me.
It is different, and I do, in the kind of work I do, and Hannah knows too, because she's doing it, we do a lot of breathing, and we do a lot of high charge breathing where we breathe first up into the upper chest, so that the breath comes in, a big breath, and then it fills, goes all the way down, and then a very soft out breath. And what you're doing is you're actually building a charge, and you're building some aliveness, and sometimes people want to go away when that happens, and so we have them get really present with their feet, do color objects. I mean, do you want to try it? Y'all want to try it? Okay, and then we'll do a meditation, it'll be perfect, okay.
Bring it up here.
So
first and then-
Hannah and I will show you.
Okay.
Okay, so Hannah, what you're gonna do is you're gonna find your collarbones, and
Okay.
just below your collarbone is these little indentations. They're actually acupressure points, and you can feel them because they're kind of tender. You feel them? You find them? Okay, so this is where
All of it.
you want the breath to come in, right? So it looks and sounds like this. See my chest? So you take that breath. If you can imagine a tube that's coming right down your throat, a nice tube all the way down to your belly, and that breath comes right up into that tube, and you can almost feel your hands just move ever so slightly as you bring that breath in. So let's do it all together. squeeze your eyes and look around the room. And one more. So find your feet. That's just your sympathetic nervous system getting a little engaged because it gets dry. So color objects, everybody. So you look around the room and you go, blue jacket, black sweater, red flower, white shirt, everybody.
Brown
Orange
chair,
heels.
Out loud.
black boot,
Gray wall.
Black
blue
slider.
brown.
It's hard. Your brain,
It's hard.
your brain wants to do everything but get you here. And so because you took some oxygen in, your brain sort of wants to go away. So we do the color objects as a way to really keep people present.
Oh.
Yeah.
You
So
mean your brain wants to wander?
yeah, because you're bringing in energy and oxygen that you're not accustomed to,
Okay.
right? So what did anybody have any notice anything from doing that breathing? 5 breaths. Did you get a little lightheaded? Okay, so that's how are you now? Perfectly 100% back?
Yes, I think so.
Okay. So this is why I do that, and I do it to everybody. I ask everybody because many of us, especially women, tend to say, yeah, I'm okay.
Mm-hmm.
And just taking a little bit extra time to say, oh yeah, orange light, white lampshade, gray doorknob, brown basket. They'll go, oh yeah, now I feel
Squeeze
different.
something between your
And
legs.
we put a ball sometimes here to just really get grounded and present.
So you're trying to not get us to drift. You want us back.
Back with energy and aliveness. So what did you notice?
I don't know, with the meditation, yeah, the drifting, the going away, but in my mind, all the meditations that I have done, that was the goal, and I didn't want to come back.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, this isn't a meditative
No,
breathing.
this isn't meditation.
Yeah.
We
Okay,
haven't done the
yeah.
meditation.
Okay,
This
okay.
was just a little experience of the kind of breathing, we call it high charge breathing.
I mean, it's kind of in
That Hannah and I
contrast
do.
to like the 16 seconds.
Well, it is, because it's a different form of breathing, right?
With kind of a different purpose.
What is
Yeah,
it
what is
doing
the goal?
to my brain?
So you're bringing oxygen into your brain and an awareness of this energetic feeling.
And what do you use it for in practice? Like you would specifically say to somebody, okay, let's do this breathing because.
So what it does is it allows access to a lot of emotions that we don't normally have access to because
Or suppressing?
we find ways to sort of numb them or suppress them or quiet them. And the breath is just this marvelous, amazing vehicle to allow us to come home to what we're feeling and have permission to feel it. As
You can
well as
process it.
giving ourselves this, yes, and processing it, as well as having this expansive aliveness feeling and being able to tolerate that.
And it shows us where it's stored in the body, and also there are movements that this style of therapy has designed to use in concert with the breath in a certain way in order to allow for
A flow.
flow and release of those where we've stored,
That's why you
root
cry in
obstruction
yoga.
in the body.
Or some people, I mean, not me.
Definitely not. Yeah. Just as some of those other people.
Yeah.
Okay. So
Now
now,
there's a mindfulness thing too. Sorry, because like if you're getting yourself, your sympathetic nervous system, like engaged purposefully in a contained state,
yes.
then you're creating a safe space for you to learn how to still be.
To contain those emotions, yes.
contain
Thank you for
those
saying
feelings.
that. That's so true. That's right.
Cool.
Yeah.
Well, we're going to do another talk at some point where I will really, and Hannah and I actually can do it together, where we can really have you all have an experience of the kind of work that I do in my practice. And we have these pillows so that we use them sort of as a narrative to help you understand what I do and actually what Hannah's learning to do now too. And it's the only way I practice. This is how I practice my therapy. I find that talk therapy is wonderful, but what I found is that most people leave just talk therapy, and it's good and it's okay, but they don't have what they really need to sustain the change that they want to have in their lives. And what I've found is that the body is just this amazing resource and repository of so much information and aliveness. So I use it all the time, and it's been transformational for me on a personal level, and I find it so with my clients as well. Okay, so breathe. How much time do we have? Because that will allow me to know how long to make this meditation. How long does everybody have?
What time is it?
It's
About a 8:45.
8:45.
The kids are asleep.
Yeah, exactly.
Already in.
So you're good.
I mean, it won't be longer than 15,
No,
20 minutes.
no, it won't be any
Yeah.
longer than 20 minutes. Is that good for everyone? All right, so
15, 20.
max. All right, so get comfortable. And this meditation is going to focus on the breath, actually. Normally I give a mantra to follow, but this one is really going to be you being able to just focusing on the breath. And every time your brain wants to start taking you away, you're just going to come back to your breath time and time again. And I'll remind you as we're doing it. The name of this meditation is called How to Use Your Gifts Heroically in the World, based on Brooke's Element presentation. So now that you are aware, actually let me stop for a moment because I just want to, I'm going to ring a bell and I think it's going to sound, I have to get off this for a moment. Okay, sorry. It'll sound like that.
At the end, you mean?
So that's the sound of the bell that
At
you'll
the end.
hear at the end of the meditation, and I'll tell you a little bit more about that in a moment. Okay. Now that you're aware of both the strengths and the challenges inherent in each of the elements, we're going to do a little meditation to focus on honing and celebrating the unique gifts that each of us possesses, based on the dominant element. Yes, we all have flavors of the elements, but there was one that we all kind of found ourselves going to. Even just an intuitive sense, I would say that's your element. So we're going to meditate together. At the end, I will ring a soft bell that you just heard to let you know that the meditation is ending. When you hear the chime, just sit gently with your eyes closed, and I'll tell you when to open your eyes, okay? There may be some brief moments of silence throughout the meditation as I pause from time to time, okay? So, allow your body to take an alert, yet relaxed posture, allowing the chair or the floor, whatever you're sitting on, to support you. Jon Kabat-Zinn, who is the father of mindfulness, describes it as one that embodies dignity and wakefulness. So notice how you feel in your body. Now take a slow, deep breath in through your nose and exhale through your mouth, allowing your whole body to just melt and relax. Take another deep breath in through the nose and exhale deeply but gently through the mouth. Become aware of this moment, allowing your breath to find its own natural rhythm. And now just breathe gently in through the nose and out through the nose. In through the nose and out through the nose. Keeping your eyes closed, begin by bringing a full, present attention to whatever you feel within you and around you. Bring your attention to where you most notice the sensation of the breath. Breathing in and breathing out. Breathing in and breathing out. Do you feel it in your chest, in your lungs? Do you feel it in your belly, in your nose? See if you can find it. Breathing in, breathing out. Breathing in, breathing out. Where is the breath? Where do you notice it most? This is your anchor. Each time your mind wanders, come back to the physical sensations of the breath. Breathe in and breathe out. Your mind is going to wander. It's perfectly okay. Just come back to that breath. Wherever it is that you feel it, come back to that place. Finding your anchor each time a thought comes in. Just let it pass just like a cloud in the sky. Thoughts will come and thoughts will go, but your breath is always there. Let your mind be spacious and your heart kind and soft. Connect with your essence. Center yourself and begin to radiate your own grounded, peaceful, natural way of being. Breathing in and breathing out. There may be sounds, thoughts, feelings. It's okay. Just come back to the breath. As you sit, feel the sensations of your body, and then notice what sounds, feelings, thoughts, and expectations are present. Allow them all to come and to go, to rise and fall like the waves of the ocean. Be aware of the waves and rest seated in the midst of them. Allow yourself to become more and more still, coming home to the breath, time after time. No matter what you experience, be aware of it. Let it come and go and rest at ease in the midst of it all. When you drift away to sounds and thoughts and sensations or emotions, that's so perfect. It's exactly what you're meant to do. And when you realize you've drifted away ever so gently, just come back to the breath. Breathing in and breathing out. Breathing in and breathing out. Allowing yourself to find the rhythm, your own unique rhythm of your breath. We'll sit in stillness for a few moments. So take a moment now and connect to each of your archetypes. Your archetype, a way of coming home to your true and fully actualized self, the purest part of who you are, your essence, where your life breath resides. And as you connect to that part of you, imagine that your archetype has something to share with you. Allow yourself to become more and more still as you invite these words into your heart and mind. In the center of it all, feel your breathing, your life breath. Water, you are a true sage. You bring the gift of immersion, reflection, and imagination to this world. You are our philosophers and deepest thinkers. Wood, you are a true hero. You bring the gifts of exploration, courage, and flexibility to this world. You are the pioneer filled with curiosity and a willingness to both challenge and create new boundaries. Fire, it is your charismatic spirit that makes you a natural-born leader. You draw us in with your excited exuberance and your bright and passionate light. You are our wizard who seem to spontaneously create magic wherever you go. Earth, the true caregivers. Your deep and genuine concern for others is healing and essential. You come to the world with a desire to create harmony and equanimity. You are our peacemakers. Metal, the true judge. You understand the world through its rhythms and reasons. You seek order and have a profound aesthetic sense. Your desire to create and transform matter makes you our alchemists. So take a moment now to really connect to these precious, unique gifts that each of you bring to this world, and silently express appreciation for your magnificent and beautiful selves. Breathe it all in. Are you willing to really show up for yourself and allow yourself to be the truest expression of who you are at your core? And come back to the breath. Knowing that you have invited purest part of who you are to come forward, to greet and meet each day with. And breathe in and breathe out. Visualize that part of you that really you are. To be open, playful, and free. Just keep breathing. Really breathing in the sense of wonder that each one of us brings to this world. Now take a slow, deep breath in and gently release it. And just begin to come back into the room, keeping your eyes closed. Just wiggle your toes a little, your fingers. Just allowing yourself to gently ease back. I'm going to ring our little chime, and when it feels comfortable, you can slowly open your eyes and look around at those that you've shared this sweet moment in time with. Take a moment, reorient yourself, and if you like, you can place your hands together, bring them to your heart, bow your head, and receive the love that is in this room and out in the universe. If you choose to, you can say namaste. I honor the divine light in you that is also in me. You're welcome.
And thank you all for being here. And to anyone who's listening, thank you for sharing this with us. And
We'll be back.
we'll be back next
I'll
month.
be back with more.